The Badger basketball team is on a roll and getting ever closer to a potential Big Ten championship. Oregon is up next, and I'm going to tell you all about that team and why I think it's a much harder game than many expect.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Badgers, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Rajiv, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Thank you for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. And if you are an everydayer, you know that Ryan made his official announcement this week that I'd be joining Locked On Badgers. So I just want to say thank you first and foremost to everyone who sent kind words after our Illinois preview show. Really, really appreciate it. And it really means a lot to me. So listen, on today's show, we're going to do an Oregon preview. We're going to talk all about that team, keys to the games, strength and weaknesses of Oregon, and how they're likely to attack us. In our second segment, we're going to switch and talk about us. What are the Badger keys to victory? Who's going to have the most success against Oregon, and who I think is going to have a sneaky good game? Lastly, I'll go over my score predictions for the game and do a bit of a Big Ten roundup. Talk about a couple big matchups coming up that are going to have a really important piece of the conference crown. Listen, let's talk about this basketball team. I'm telling you what, I'm super, super pumped about what I've been seeing lately. The offense is incredible to watch. I have to say, though, I was not on the Illinois reaction show, and man, I was so nervous watching that game. I know we won by 21. It was an absolute blowout in the end, and we looked incredible. Offensively, it was a magnificent game. I was literally on pins and needles that entire second half just because of how many wide open threes Illinois was getting, and they were draining them in the second half. And I know the lead was always comfortable, but it just kind of felt like one of those dirty wins almost that we played really well, but defensively there's so many holes that it just makes me nervous. Now, I know that's who we are, right? I've heard that before. I totally get it. We're never going to be a great defensive team, and that's fine. But ultimately, I wish we were a little more solid at times because I don't want to stress as much during games. But that being said, that's the bad part. The good thing is this team is so fun to watch. And yes, the Illinois game was incredible. That, if you remember, we're in this middle of a 3-game homestand. And I had said that was the game that I was most concerned about, was that Illinois game. I wasn't really sure what we were going to get. That team matches up really well against us. Now we were lucky in that, Ivisic was sick, didn't really play that well. And of course, Morez Johnson was out. So we definitely got lucky there. But in order to be in the conference race, we've got to win those types of games. We have to do it. And we have to do it again. And now we're playing Oregon. Now, this is interesting. It's a team that we don't really know a lot about, right? New to the conference. We haven't really seen them play a lot. I haven't watched a lot of Oregon basketball until recently, trying to learn more about this team. They've had a really interesting up and down season. If you remember early in the year, Oregon was ranked in the top 10 in the middle to end of January. The middle to end of December, sorry. And then in January, they kind of had a bit of a rough stretch. So they have big wins on their schedule. They beat Texas A&M and Alabama, both teams that are currently ranked in the top 7. That's pretty impressive. They also beat Maryland. Again, coming into the season, this team was ranked. They were definitely one of those favorites to certainly be in the top 4 in the Big Ten, maybe not winning it per se, but definitely a team that was going to be up there. So they started the Big Ten season. They, in their first 2 sort of Big Ten games that were before January, they went 1-1. They played USC and UCLA. They have a couple good wins in the conference. Like I said, Maryland is certainly one of those. But then they went on a 5-game losing streak. Now, a couple of those games were against Michigan State, Purdue, not games you really expect to lose, but they did have a couple bad losses in there. Minnesota was a bad loss for them. And it's really just one of those things where, and Nebraska, they lost to Nebraska at home. At home, they lost to Nebraska. That's not something that you really want to do. We always know that you're going to have tough games on the road in this conference, but to lose at home like that is not the way that you really want to start anything and be successful. That was it was Minnesota and Nebraska. That was bad. At Minnesota and Nebraska at home. So they're 8-8 in conference, 19-8 overall. Solid tournament team at this point. They're projected to be 7-8 seed right now. Because of the wins they have against A&M and Alabama, they're definitely going to be a tournament team. I don't really see that being an issue. As far as their team in general, similar to us, they have a similar defensive efficiency rating. They're 52nd in the country. We're 40th. So they don't play great defense, especially lately. They started out the year as a much better defensive team, but their defensive efficiency rating is 52. Offensively, they're 33. We're 6, right? So we're definitely a stronger offensive team, but they're not bad. They're a good offensive team. And there's a lot of pieces, which we're going to get into, kind of break down the starting five a little bit, talk to you about some of those key players. But there is definitely firepower on this Oregon team. They can score in bunches. They've had up and down games. Certainly, they've had games where they've allowed, like they allowed only, I think, Purdue to score 60 points or something of that nature. But then they're poor offensively in some of those games. They haven't been able to really put it together. But at the end of the day, they're 500 in conference, which is not a bad thing to be. So let's get into their starting five a little bit. The first thing is their guards. These guys can shoot, right? So we've got Keeshawn Barthelemy and Jackson Shelstad. Now, Jackson Shelstad is their 3-point specialist, 40% from 3 in conference, by the way, this season in conference. So he's 40% on the year overall. In conference, I think he's 54% in conference, I believe. It's unbelievable how well Shelstad is shooting in conference. So yeah, it's 46% from 3. And they can score in bunches. He scores 13.7 points a game. He is their leading scorer, even though we're going to talk about their big man in a minute, who's probably their most effective player, especially against us. Yeah, Shelstad is definitely a scorer. He can shoot the 3. We cannot let this guy take open threes. Keeshawn Barthelemy is the other guy I mentioned, 9.7 points a game, 41% 3-point shooter. So he definitely also can stroke it really well and can be a great shooter. Then they've got a couple other guys, another guard, big guard, 6'5", 210, TJ Bamba, and then Brandon Angel. Now, Brandon Angel is a guy that you'll remember as Badger fans. He was someone that we were looking to bring in from Stanford in the summer. Didn't work out. He was certainly one of the targets in the transfer portal. Wasn't successful, but he's playing well for Oregon, 9.3 points a game, 54% from the field. He's definitely a really good scorer. He shoots over 60% from 2. So certainly around the basket, he's really effective. But the guy that they really have is Nate Bittle. Nate Bittle, 7 foot, 220-pound center, 12.6 points per game, second on the team, 7 rebounds and 2 blocks. And we know we've talked a lot about our inability to deal with physical bigs. He is the definition of a physical big. He's extremely talented. He can shoot the ball from the outside, not super well, doesn't shoot a ton, but he will take some threes. Mid-range game is there. He's got the hook shot. He's got a lot of good post moves. He's very aggressive and he's very physical. This will be the biggest challenge of this game. This is how I think Oregon attacks this team. If you watch Badger games, you know that's an issue for us, right? Stephen Crowd, Nolan Winter, not exactly the best defenders on the inside as far as against physical bigs. We've seen what guys like Danny Wolf have done to us. We've seen what guys like Trey Kaufman-Renn have done to us. So that's going to be an issue, and he's going to be the key for Oregon. Again, their shooters have been pretty good. They're going to, if they get open threes, they're going to take them and they're going to score. So that's certainly going to be an issue. They're also a fairly deep bench. They play 8, sometimes 9 players. Okay, so they've got a couple good. Kwame Evans Jr. certainly is a guy, again, a long, very athletic player that comes off the bench. They've got a lot of key players with them. A couple other guys, Jadrian Tracy and Supreme Cook are other couple weapons that they have off the bench. Again, this team is athletic. That's the one thing I would say about Oregon is they're very athletic. Everywhere you look across the board, they can defend athletically, they can rebound athletically, and they can get to the basket. Now, they're not always super efficient. They turn the ball over 11 times a game. Not bad. Good for kind of middle of the pack in the Big Ten. They're prone to make mistakes, and they've been playing a little poor lately. That's kind of the thing. From a confidence perspective, Oregon just hasn't been there recently. They had a really good stretch early, as I mentioned. And then in the Big Ten, they've kind of fall down a little bit, right? They just haven't played up to their potential. And a team that's lacking on confidence coming into the Kohl Center, that's a recipe for success for the Badgers, no doubt. And that's something that I'm hoping that we can really benefit of. But yeah, so from an Oregon perspective, they're definitely going to attack with Nate Bittle and the shooter Shelstad and Barthelemy. And again, their bench, Tracy can shoot. Evans is a big guy that can make a lot of havoc, wreak a lot of havoc against our team, and can defend really well as well. So look, I think this is going to be a difficult game, right? Definitely a difficult game. I'm going to come back after the break and we're going to talk a little bit about what our keys are to this game and who I think from a Badger perspective is really going to be successful. We're taking a quick break for our friends of the show, FanDuel. Listen, March Madness is coming around the corner. The NBA season is in full effect. There's just so many things to bet on right now, and it's always super exciting. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Listen, I love same-game parlays. I love doing that kind of stuff. If you're an everydayer, and you know how I feel about sports betting. March Madness is actually what got me into sports betting to start with. That was the gateway for me into gambling. I absolutely love it. Then, of course, I went to football and the NBA and basketball and everything. So definitely check out FanDuel. It's a really great place. The lines are there. So many options. That's the thing about FanDuel. You can bet in so many different ways. You can parlay different kinds of things. Wherever you're into from a betting perspective, you can find on FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's get back into this a little bit and talk about the Badger side of it. We broke down Oregon a little bit. They've got a lot of key players. But how do we actually get this done? So the first thing for me, key number one in this game is keeping Nate Bittle off the spot. This guy is extremely effective. He's one of those bigs, right? Like you knew when you played Zach Edey, you knew when you played Trey Coppin-Wren, you knew when you played Danny Wolf and Golden. If they catch the ball on the block, they're scoring. There's nothing you're going to do about that. They are going to attack in the paint. That's how I feel they're going to do this. They're going to use their three-point shooting. They're going to try to spread the floor. Similar to what we do, they're going to use that Bittle success that he's had. We've got to get him off the spot. We don't necessarily have the best success at that. However, even though they're not super physical, Steven Crowl especially is really good at positional defense. And I like the fact that he is a heady guy. He's a veteran, right? I mean, again, Oregon, by the way, very veteran-laden team as well. They've got 4 seniors in that starting lineup. They've got a lot of success there too in the past. But I believe that Steven Crowl can keep him off the spot. Positional defense, making it difficult for him to find his way into the lane. And I don't think we're going to double down on him per se, especially early, because they do have a lot of weapons shooting. But if we do, I'm perfectly fine with that. He's a guy that has to be stopped. You could look at it from the perspective of, well, he's a guy that's just going to get his and we're going to have to deal with stopping the others. And that may be what happens because I think he is going to score probably 15 to 17 points tomorrow. But if we keep him off the spot a little bit, try to make it a little more difficult for him to even catch the ball, and then double if he's out on the wings a little bit, try to get him shaken there. That could be successful. But if he gets down low, it's going to be really, really difficult for us to stop him. Number 2. So defensively, again, I understand that we're never going to be this incredible defensive team. I totally get that. What I can't seem to understand is the number of times that three-point shooters are wide open. You saw it against Purdue. You saw it against Illinois. I get that it's going to happen from time to time, but they're wide open three-point shooters. We have to close out. So that's key number 2 for me is closing out on three-point shooters. If Shelstad is out there in the corner, he loves that corner spot, kind of like Kamari McGee does. Or if he's out anywhere he is, Barthelemy, they're going to shoot. And if we give this team opportunities to stay in this game, knowing that they have Nate Bittle in the middle, that's going to cause us a lot of problems, that is not going to be good for us, right? So I think we really got to close it on these shooters. Look, they're going to make shots. Okay, we're not going to stop Oregon from scoring, but we do need to find a way to kind of close out those guys and make it more difficult for them, which to be fair, earlier part of the season, we were doing a much better job with that. But that's been a recent concern for us. Now, I know that we're scoring a ton of points, and that's certainly great. The third key for me is going to be specifically ball movement on offense. Look, I know we're going to score a lot of points. It's great. Our offense is humming. This team is an athletic team that plays athletic defense. Their on-ball pressure is actually pretty good as far as on-ball defending. So I don't know how much success John Tonje and John Blackwell are going to have driving into the lane and scoring like that. But a quick drive and dish, swing the ball around, find Kamari McGee open in the corner for the three, and really moving the ball crisp and clean, we're going to get open looks. If you watch the Iowa game that Oregon played a couple days ago, that's exactly what Iowa did, right? And they were able to get Payne Sanford had tons of open threes. We're going to get some shots against this team, but it's got to take crisp ball movement, and that's something that we do really well. I think we're going to have absolute success in this game as far as scoring against Oregon. The question is really going to be, can we defend? As always, that's always the question. But I do think this team has the ability to play good defense. Now, if you look back at Oregon's games this year, again, they beat Alabama, they beat Texas A&M. They held those guys to decent point totals. None of those teams scored 90 on them. Do I think we get to 90? Probably, just because of the way we're playing right now. But if they're up for it, and if they come into the Kohl Center and playing with some early confidence, they can really play tough pressure on ball defense, and that's gonna hurt us. So I'm hoping with good ball movement and obviously good shooting, which we tend to have, we should have success in this game. Look, I think Tonje is still the key, right? I mean, ultimately, 2 back-to-back 30-point games. He's looking for a third in a row. The guy's absolutely crushing it right now. He's playing with so much confidence too. It's the threes that he's taking are not always the cleanest. They're definitely not the easiest. He's taking rough threes, but he's doing great with it. And that's something that we're very lucky to have on this team. A player that I'm really excited about to see in this game is a guy that we've seen get better and better every game for the last few, and that's Max Klesmit. I do think, again, with the way that this team plays defense, the way they have been sort of declining in their defensive presence recently, Oregon, that I think Max Klesmit's going to get a few shots tomorrow. That he's got an opportunity to go nuclear. We've been saying for weeks now that Max Klesmit can go nuclear. He will go nuclear. I think tomorrow is that day. He's been impacting games in different ways, right? It's not just shooting threes. Now, he's still taking them. He's still making about 25 or 30% of them per game right now, but he's doing all the other things. He's playing really more of a true point guard. He's had 6 assists in a couple games recently. He hasn't been turning the ball over very much, and he's driving into the lane and either getting fouled, dishing it, scoring at the hoop, and that's really great. I think he's primed for that really big game. Another player I'm going to tell you to watch out for is Xavier Amos. We know, and you go look back at that Minnesota game, and you saw the way he played defense against Dawson Garcia. That kind of effort. Now, Oregon doesn't have a Dawson Garcia, but I do think that when you talk about a guy like Brandon Angel, you talk about a guy like Bittle, how can he affect that? Talk about a guy like TJ Bamba. If Amos can come in there and actually be a really aggressive, athletic defender, that's going to be a big part of this game. And he's also been one of those guys that just has been sort of creeping up in his productivity recently, affecting games in different ways, which is totally fine. And I think that's okay. It doesn't always have to be with the three. I'm okay with Xavier Amos not shooting like crazy from three. What I want to continue to see from him is playing good defense, which I absolutely think he can do. I really do believe this is going to be a tough game, though. It's not going to be easy against this Oregon team who can score in different ways. And ultimately, it's about where we are in the season, too, right? Like, we need this if we want any chance at winning the Big Ten. We're going to take one more quick break for our friends of the show. And then we're going to come back and talk about the score prediction that I got for this game and kind of how things lay out in the Big Ten right now. There's 2 or 3 really big matchups coming up they're going to play a pivotal role in how the conference shakes out. Want to say thank you once again to all of our everydayers, Locked On Badgers, your team every day. Thanks again for joining us. And thank you again for all the support for me joining the Locked On community. Really, really appreciate all that. And thank you to Ryan as well. Now, he's not on the show, so I can say nice things about him because he doesn't like that when he's on the show with you. But he's the GOAT. And, this is going to be something that we've been talking about to kind of add to the community, build the community even better than it already has. Ryan's done an incredible job with Locked On Badgers. And I'm just very humbled and honored to be a part of it, which is great. So listen, first, let's talk about the Big Ten. Again, we're third right now. Purdue has lost a little bit. So they've now got 5 losses. We've got 4. Big game tonight. Michigan State at Michigan. Now, I was really hoping that Michigan would have gone down to Ohio State last week. They didn't. We talked about it. Thornton, Ohio State's point guard, air ball, 5 feet away. Not the best way to end a game, but it allowed Michigan to stay at the top of the conference. Michigan State is going to Michigan. Battle for Michigan, Friday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. We need Michigan State to win that game. Ultimately, we're going to need Michigan to lose twice and us to win out all the way if we're going to actually do this and win this conference, which I still really think is a good possibility. But it starts tomorrow. It starts with the ability for us to keep home court and hopefully for Michigan State to win at Michigan. Michigan's got another one coming up on Monday. So they're playing Monday at Nebraska. Look, on paper, they shouldn't lose that game. Nebraska is not a very difficult team to beat. We certainly know that. We've played them, but they have had critical wins. They beat this Oregon team. They've tripped up some other teams in the conference. They're fighting for their position right now, trying to make their case, and they need every good win they can get. That's a massive win if they can beat Michigan. What we know is that winning on the road in this conference is brutally difficult. We know this. And I don't care who you're playing, Michigan going on the road, even to a place like Nebraska, is not going to be an easy thing to do. Purdue plays Indiana this weekend. Purdue is probably out of the conference race with 5 losses, like we would be if we have 5, just because, again, I don't really see Michigan losing 2 or 3 more games. They might lose 2, get to 4, and then, of course, we have the ability to hopefully step in there and win that if we can win out. But Purdue plays Indiana. They need to get back in the win column. They lost to Michigan State recently. They lost to us, obviously. Their confidence is low. They're trying to stay in the top 4 in the conference because, of course, top 4 gets double bye in the Big Ten tournament. So that's going to be important. Big Ten tournament's not something that I'm really a huge fan of, but nonetheless, I want to be in the top 4. If nothing else, then just to not have the extra game. Right? Because ultimately you've got to go play the NCAA tournament the week after. I don't want to have more of a problem, fighting those games. So I'd rather be a little fresher, take the double bye and go from there. But look, let's talk about this game a little more. I know that on paper they're 8-8, they're 19-8. Oregon is. This should be a victory for us. There's no doubt. We're 12-1 at the Kohl Center this season. Our only loss being to Michigan. At the time, that was a difficult loss, but all you've seen is that this team is Michigan's one of the best teams in America. I think their 2 bigs, Wolf and Golden, are incredible. And, Dusty May's doing a great job coaching that team. They're a really good team. So that is not a bad loss. But so we should be able to hold serve it at home, and we need to, right? 3-game homestand. We talked about it. Illinois, Oregon, Washington, all at home. Those have to be 3 wins. Now, if we lose at Michigan State, is that a bad loss? Of course not. It doesn't mean we probably don't win the Big Ten. That's okay. But you got to take care of your home court, especially against the team that just beat Iowa by 2 points, barely, was on a 5-game losing streak in the middle of the season. So they're a team that we have to get. But again, they're athletic. They have a big man that can score almost at will, especially against our team. This is not going to be an easy game. I do think we get this done. Like I said, I expect Max Klesmit to have a nuclear game. It's got to happen, right? I mean, this guy he's been out there shooting threes for weeks, and he hasn't been able to go nuclear yet. I think he will. And listen, if it's not this game, it's the next game, but it's coming. And Xavier Amos, watch out for Xavier Amos. I really feel like he's been, and both of those guys, by the way, just, it's all about the little things, right? And that's the thing that I don't feel like can be overstated. when you're not shooting the ball well and you're not scoring a ton of points, if you can do the other things well, it gets you back in the game, get your confidence up. And I feel like that's exactly what Xavier Amos and Max Klesmit both need. Now, Klesmit's playing a lot better lately. I think he's certainly been affecting a lot of games, but that's the next step for him. He's gonna, like Ryan always says, and we talk about on the show, water finds its level, right? Which means Kamari McGee probably not going to be shooting his insane 50-plus three-point shooting percentage. But Max Klesmit is right now shooting 29%. We know he's better than that. Now, he's going to have to be shooting close to 40% for the rest of the year to get his number even up to 30. But it's going to happen. Now, whether it happens now, whether it happens in the tournament, we know he's still going to be relied upon, and we're going to need that. I really don't feel like there's any way that we can make a deep tournament run and even win this conference without a guy like Max Klesmit hitting fire one of these games. John Tonje has been absolutely incredible. John Blackwell has been absolutely incredible. But those guys, they're not going to do it every game. Now, we've been lucky to have one of them in each of our big games actually be successful. Hopefully we can have Klesmit do the same. Winter and Crowell are going to have a tough game. They're going to be battling against Bittle. That's going to be a difficult thing. Scoring against Bittle is also not going to be an easy thing. He averages 2 blocks a game. So keep stretching the floor, pulling him all the way out, right? Make him guard you at the 3-point line. Because if you do that, then that's going to open that lane and allow Tonje and Blackwell to do what they need to do. So critical game for both of them. And I like the way that Winter has been playing lately and being more aggressive. You saw him cutting to the basket a couple times in that Illinois game. Illinois played some really bad defense, leaving the lane wide open for a cutting Winter for a dunk, but we'll take it. I'm not saying that Oregon is going to play worse defense than Illinois. They might play better, they might play worse, but they're not the best defensive team, especially lately. So Winter is going to have those opportunities. And it's probably going to be Brandon Angel that guards him at the beginning. I think let's take him down there, right? I mean, we've seen Winter be successful when he's more aggressive. An aggressive Winter is exactly what this team needs. So I'm really, really hoping that that's what we're going to get. Tonje in the post is another thing that I'm really hoping to see. We saw it in the Illinois game. Ryan talks about it all the time. Why are we not putting him in the post more? He is unbelievably physical. He knows how to use his body down low. He's got really good post moves. Let's put him down there a little bit more than we already are. And I think that'll be really successful. I mean, we're going to have that. This game is critical for us. We have to take care of home court in this 3-game homestand, right? After the Washington game, we got to go to Michigan State. And then we end the season with the game trip to the barn and then Penn State at home. When you look at the other teams, when you look at teams like Michigan State, who have a brutal schedule, they already played Purdue. They did beat them. They play Michigan. They play Michigan again to end the season. And I think they have Illinois in there too. That's really hard. So we do have the easiest path, but it means we've got to beat this team. We've got to beat Oregon, got to beat Washington, got to take care of Penn State, Minnesota. And that's the only way we're going to get it done. The other teams have difficult games. We have one really, really hard game. What I've always been worried about are these random slip-ups, right? We talk about that a lot. Like, you're going to beat teams that you shouldn't beat. You're going to lose to teams that you shouldn't lose to. I don't see that happening in this game. I think we're going to get it done, but it's going to be one of those games where we need to be very careful. Rebounding, we should be okay. There's most of the metrics you look at and you say, all right, we should be all right in this game. And I think we will be in the end. My final score prediction for this game is 92-79. Look, 90 points again. I, by the way, said that we were going to score 90 points in our game against Illinois. And I think Ryan said, no, he thought it was going to be like 81-70 something or whatever. But this team is scoring 90 points again. Who's going to stop them? Who is really going to stop Tonje, Blackwell, Winter, Crowell, McGee, Klesmit? I don't think you're going to stop them. I don't think Oregon stops them. Oregon has the potential to play good defense. They're very athletic. Our biggest concern is going to be stopping Nate Bittle. Our biggest concern is going to be stopping Jackson Shelstad. As far as them stopping us, I really don't see it happening. We think we get this done tomorrow and we move on. We continue on the path to potentially win a Big Ten championship. It's exciting. I will be back again for the Oregon Reaction Show. Tune in live after the Oregon game. I think there's a group of Locked On Badgers fans going to the game with Ryan. So Ryan's in Madison right now. That's going to be exciting for him. I'm going to be at home in Las Vegas, sadly being jealous of not being at that game. But it's going to be a fun one. And I think we're going to get it done. By the way, have so much fun. All you guys, if you're going to the game with Ryan, have a great time tomorrow. Tune in here again for the reaction show. When you're done here, go check out Locked On Big Ten for all the Big Ten news and notes. Of course, Big Ten Conference Championship talk and playoff talk, right? The Big Ten, Ryan did a show about this yesterday. The Big Ten is now really positioning itself to have a lot of success in the future CFPs, and that's really good for a team like us. We definitely need that. So go check out Locked On Big Ten for all your Big Ten news. It's been great. I'm super excited to be part of Locked On Badgers. And we will see you all again tomorrow.